Back then, the average house cost around $25,000. Gas was about 55 cents a gallon, and you could still fill your tank with a $5 bill and have change left over for a coffee. We didn't feel rich, but we had enough to keep the lights on, pay the mortgage, and maybe take a trip to the shore once a year. You could still raise a family on one income. Dad worked long hours at the plant or the office, and Mom ran the house like a well-oiled machine. Dinner was on the table by 6, the TV trays came out for the Friday night movie, and the only thing we ordered in was the occasional pizza. And that was an event. Saturday mornings were sacred. The smell of fresh-cut grass drifted through the open windows as every neighborhood mower roared to life. Kids sat cross-legged in front of the TV for Scooby-Doo, Fat Albert, and Schoolhouse Rock. Cereal bowls balanced dangerously close to tipping. The fashion, let's just say you can't talk about the 70s without talking about bell-bottom jeans. We wore them until the hems were shredded from dragging on the pavement. Paired with platform shoes, you could gain 3 inches in height and lose all sense of balance at the same time. Everything came in earth tones, harvest gold, avocado green, burnt orange, the colors of the decade. Our kitchens looked like permanent autumn, right down to the patterned vinyl floors that could hide a week's worth of crumbs. The stereo was the heart of the house. A huge wooden cabinet, sliding glass doors, and stacks of vinyl albums that we handled like gold. You'd drop the needle on Fleetwood Mac's Rumors or Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon and just listen. Nobody skipped tracks. You let the whole album play. If you wanted to make your own mix, you recorded it off the radio onto a cassette, sitting there for hours, finger poised on the pause button, cursing the DJ for talking over the intro of your favorite song. Going to the movies was magic. You'd stand in line under the glowing marquee, popcorn scent spilling out onto the sidewalk. Jaws made us scared to swim for a summer. Rocky made us believe in underdogs, and Star Wars made every kid in America want to be a Jedi. The mall was the new town square. We'd wander from Spencer's Gifts to the record store to Orange Julius, blowing allowance money on lava lamps and band posters. Drive-in still ruled the summer nights. You'd pack the car with blankets and friends, hook the speaker to the window, and watch double features under the stars. The picture was grainy, the sound was tinny, but nobody cared. Back then, grocery shopping was an event. We pushed those rattly metal carts down aisles lined with canned goods and muted labels. None of this modern minimalist branding nonsense. Everything was loud, colorful, and sometimes a little too honest about what it was. Hamburger Helper promised dinner in a box, Jell-O molds were still considered fancy, and every checkout lane had a rack of tabloids screaming about UFOs and Elvis sightings. S&H green stamps were still around. Mom would lick the back of those little squares and stick them into booklets until her fingers were tacky. Eventually, we'd trade them in for a toaster, a blender, or that set of mismatched drinking glasses we somehow still have. Microwave ovens were creeping into kitchens, but they were the size of small cars and weighed about as much. At first, we didn't trust them. Radiation, people whispered, but once you realized you could heat leftovers in 3 minutes instead of 30, you stopped asking questions. Fast food was a treat, not a habit. A trip to McDonald's meant burgers wrapped in yellow paper, fries in a little white pouch, and a milkshake so thick you could bend a straw trying to sip it. The big supermarkets had bag boys, real, actual humans who packed your groceries into brown paper sacks and carried them to your car. And you let them, even if you could have done it yourself. The smell of a fresh newspaper in the morning was part of the day. Dad would claim the sports section first, Mom took the coupons, and the comics went to whoever could grab them fastest. Kids' TV shows were a wild mix. The Electric Company made us think. H.R. Pufnstuf made us wonder what on earth the writers were smoking, and Land of the Lost gave us nightmares about Sleestaks. School lunches came on beige trays with divided compartments. Mystery meat in one, overcooked peas in another, and a dessert that may or may not have been safe to eat. But we didn't complain much. It was hot, it was free, if your parents paid taxes, and it came with a little carton of milk that was always warm by the time you opened it. Gym class wasn't just dodgeball. We climbed ropes to the ceiling, ran laps in Converse sneakers with no arch support, and learned square dancing for reasons still unknown. Textbooks were handed out with other kids' names still written in them. You were expected to cover them in brown paper bags from the grocery store, a perfect excuse to doodle during class. The school library smelled like dust and ambition. We learned the Dewey Decimal System like it was a survival skill, flipping through card catalogs with fingers that always ended up smelling faintly of old paper. Field trips were simple. Pack a lunch, pile into a bus with green vinyl seats, and hope you didn't get the one that squeaked. We'd go to the zoo, the planetarium, or maybe a local factory, and we thought it was the height of adventure. In the evenings, the TV was a gathering place. All in the family made us laugh and argue in the same breath. Massa made us cry in spite of ourselves. And the Love Boat made us think cruising was the most glamorous thing in the world. Commercials were just part of life. We sang along to jingles without shame. I'd like to buy the world a Coke. 2 all-beef patties. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz. They got stuck in your head for weeks. Fashion kept evolving. Polyester shirts with collars so wide you could land a plane on them. Leisure suits and shades no human skin tone should have to compete with. And everything was flammable. At night, we'd lie in bed with the window open, listening to crickets and the occasional passing car. No hum of air conditioners, no glow of phones, just darkness, quiet, and the sense that the world was asleep. Summer meant the smell of suntan lotion and copper-tone ads with a little dog tugging at a girl's swimsuit. Pools were packed, beaches were crowded, and if you were lucky, you had a slip and slide in the backyard. Basically a long piece of plastic designed to give you grass burns. Vacations were usually road trips. The station wagon was loaded with suitcases, snacks in a cooler, and a road atlas that Mom would flip through like she was deciphering a treasure map. Seatbelts? Optional. Arguments over who got the way back seat? Mandatory. Rest stops sold souvenir spoons, snow globes, and state-shaped magnets. We'd buy a few, convinced we were building a world-class collection. When we stopped for the night, motels had neon signs that buzzed and flickered, ice machines that clunked, and tiny bars of soap wrapped in paper. If it had a pool, we thought it was a resort. Back home, Saturday nights meant going out, maybe bowling, maybe to a local diner. Burgers came on real plates, coffee came in thick ceramic mugs, and waitresses called you Hon without knowing your name. In the neighborhood, kids played kick the can, flashlight tag, and Red Rover until our parents called us in. If you scraped your knee, you got a Band-Aid and maybe a popsicle. No one asked about liability. Birthdays were celebrated in the backyard with homemade cake and party hats that cut into your forehead. We played pin the tail on the donkey and swung at piñatas filled with enough candy to cause a week-long sugar high. Halloween meant pillowcases full of candy, store-bought costumes made of plastic and flammable fabric, and masks that made it impossible to breathe. We didn't care. The more houses you hit, the better your haul. Christmas shopping was done in person at the mall or downtown. You carried bags until your fingers went numb and wrapped everything with paper that had to be secured with half a roll of Scotch tape. Every home had a box of ornaments with stories, the handmade ones from school, the fragile glass balls from Grandma, and that one lopsided star that somehow always ended up on top of the tree. We shoveled driveways for a couple of bucks, using wooden-handled shovels that weighed more than we did. Sometimes the neighbor would hand us a cup of hot cocoa afterward, steam curling out into the frozen air. When the power went out during winter storms, we lit candles and huddled around the fireplace. Someone would pull out a deck of cards or a board game, and we'd play until the lights came back on or until someone got too competitive over Monopoly. Sports were a neighborhood affair. Kids played basketball in driveways with hoops nailed above garage doors, baseball in empty lots, and football in the street, calling car every few minutes to pause the game. In the evenings, if you were lucky enough to have tickets, you might catch a game in person. Stadiums smelled like popcorn and hot dogs, and the scoreboard was still mechanical, numbers flipping over with a clack. Home entertainment meant board games like Clue, Life, and Battleship, or maybe charades if someone was feeling theatrical. We didn't need screens to keep us busy. We had each other. Television wasn't just background noise. It was an appointment. We gathered to watch Columbo solve the mystery, Charlie's Angels chase down bad guys in slow-motion fight scenes, and The Carol Burnett Show crack everyone up, including the actors themselves. Late-night television had its own magic. The static hiss after the national anthem meant it was time for bed, unless you were one of those rebels who stayed up to stare at the test pattern like it was some kind of cosmic signal.